Welcome to the Unmuted Podcast. My name is Jeff. I'm the host of the podcast, and I'm also the founder of ScaleHR. But this podcast here, we talk about all things HR, world of work, leadership, HR tech, other things too. And all of our guests are HR TA leaders, practitioners, HR tech experts. And these episodes live on our website as well as YouTube. So we have a new website launching in 2 weeks. Yes, I know I've been saying that for a while. It's coming, but now it's actually coming. I'm giving you a date. So 2 weeks from today, it is going to be launching. And so this episode here is actually a really good one. It's called Empathy Without Absorption, How HR Can Stop Being the Office Therapist. And so, all of you HR leaders out there, I'm sure you've all had this thought of, I am not a therapist. I can't be doing this. So I need to have people with me, that I can work with or refer to. And so, yeah, I'm actually one of those people. But this topic is actually quite interesting. The emotional toll that HR has taken over the last, I guess, maybe 5+ years has been quite a lot. Obviously, HR professionals are the first line of support, for all employees when they're stressed, frustrated, facing personal and professional challenges. Yes, we are there to offer empathy. Support is part of the role, but then it translates into the emotional load that comes with this. The responsibility often goes unrecognized and then not even addressed. And so there is a growing trend, burnout, passion, fatigue in the HR field. I think that's been going on for several years now. And obviously more and more HR professionals are questioning if they want, to even stay in HR at all. And I know many people who have left. I'm actually one of them. And not for these reasons, but I know many who have left, because of personal reasons. And I guess point number 2 on this theme is, what is the redefinition of HR's role, and to really support, but not actually get absorbed, into the emotional toll. There's a distinction between empathy and then absorbing everyone else's problems. HR is not and should never be, and I'll be the first person to say that. The therapist of just any organization, we're not trained therapists, we're not trained in this field. Part of the role is knowing when to support, when to challenge, and when to step back. And it's not easy. But good news, this episode here is going to take a look at how HR professionals, can set a healthier emotional boundary, build the resilience, and, continue to lead with heart, obviously, which is very, very important, but not burning out in the process. And so I want to welcome our guest today, Christine Vigna. I hope I said your name right. I didn't ask you that, but I want to welcome you to the Unmuted Podcast.
Thank you. And perfect. You did a great job on the last name. Not many people get it. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So how did you pronounce your last name? Is it
Vigna?
Vigna. So you
got it.
Sort
you
of
nailed it.
Like a silent G, sort of a good.
Yes.
Awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Christina, welcome. Obviously we've, known each other for a long time. So maybe you can just tell our audience, a bit about what you do.
Sure. So I am the Chief People Officer at Dejero. We are a global technology company based in Waterloo. I'm a huge cheerleader for Waterloo region. So proud that we operate from there. At Dejero, we provide critical communications in environments where it's really tough. So think of places like, frontline folks, 911 centers. We've even gone to space. So places where you really can't afford to have your connectivity drop, we make that possible to ensure that you've got a steady connection all the time when it really matters. My role at HR is a little bit beyond, outside the norm of a traditional HR role, I suppose. So yes, I do manage our people function. That is my true passion. I also currently manage our technical support teams, our continuous improvement teams, and then, like many other HR folks right now, managing our AI strategy and program development across the org. So lots to keep me busy. I love it. Lots of new challenges.
Wow. So a couple questions on that.
Yes.
Then if you don't mind, I noticed that you said that you're based in Waterloo. Now, most people would say Kitchener, Waterloo. So why didn't you use the word Kitchener?
So I said Waterloo because we are physically located in Waterloo. I myself am personally not located in Waterloo, but so proud. I'm in the Waterloo region, but Dejero itself is proudly located in Waterloo. It's KW, it's Waterloo region, it's Waterloo. It's, anybody who lives there has got a different name for it.
I'd make fun of people, because they always say like KAW, and they say Kitchener in a different sentence, and then Waterloo, another. But anyway, so second question is around the connectivity situation. And so, do you work with Starlink?
So we can be part of a total solution.
Oh, part of it. Very cool. No, I just asked that because I know that a lot of people out there know, about a lot of politics. That's when we start talking about politics and Starlink and Musk in the U.S. and Canada. It strikes a little sort of chord there. I'm not trying to be political, but I just thought I'd ask the question. To get a few chuckles out of it.
Fair enough, and I think that's a good point. So, I'll say no to the political bait. I won't jump in there, but what I will say is, so where we really shine is we have something called smart blending technology. And what that means is we use all available networks to provide continuous connectivity. So one of them can be Starlink included in that.
Yeah.
That's what
I think it's great. I mean, obviously, I think that you're playing in a, really cool space. And so, okay, so let's dive into our topic here. And so we're talking about empathy in HR practitioners and leaders. I think it's a really delicate balance and a subject. So my first question for you is, where do you think the pressure on HR to act like the organization therapist is coming from?
I love this question so much. I think it's multifaceted, and I think some of it depends on your organization itself, right? But I think everyone can agree that HR has kind of become the emotional shock absorber of organizations, and that's not sustainable for the organization nor for the folks working in HR. It's not healthy. And, for all the reasons you were just saying as you introduced the episode, we're not therapists. We have to be really careful and mindful of the boundaries that we need to put up and the amount of emotional labor we take on just based on our training and what we personally can hold up. So I think, like I said, I think there's lots of reasons why that's happening. The first, I think, is just the cultural expectations, right? So HR is often viewed as the organization's emotional labor, if you will, where all the hard conversations. So if there's something challenging happening from an emotional perspective, let's push it towards HR because that's where all the people-y and the messy and the emotional stuff happens. So it should probably be directed there. It's kind of seen as the keeper of the tough conversations, especially when we're dealing with uncertain times or crises as we've seen in the past. And leads me to my next point. I think there's a bit of hangover still, and maybe it's permanently changed the way that we view things, but pandemic effect, right? COVID really changed the way that people showed up at work, not all in a bad way, but I think prior to COVID, there was a lot of, we'll say masking or harder sort of screens that we put up between how we showed up at work and then how we separated our personal lives. And I think that the pandemic kind of blurred some of that, where we brought a little bit more of our personal lives and some of what, is traditionally seen as the messy bit. So where we were having more feelings or challenges or struggles or family challenges, because we were all living that together realistically, right? When you're in lockdown and you've got kids at home or you're dealing with parents or what, everybody was in a mess. So it kind of became that safe space to chat about it. And that blurring of line between personal and professional really happened. And I think during that period, HR became not only the policymaker of all things COVID and pandemic related, but we also became the emotional responder in the workplace. And I think a lot of that is still lingering. I think another piece of it too is the invisible labor. So much of HR's work, when you think about the really heavy emotional stuff. So when we're talking about conflict, supporting mental health, supporting employees through challenging personal experiences that are happening outside of work, managing terminations, a lot of that is invisible to the rest of the organization, which means if they can't see it, how do they know you're experiencing it? And how do they know how to support it, right? And then I think the last piece, and not to bring gender dynamic into the conversation, but I think it really does play a role in it. So I think the fact that HR is typically female dominated, and the fact that in society, females are typically seen as the nurturers and caregivers, I think that emotional labor just tends to flow towards HR.
No, I should agree with you on that big time. I mean, obviously, it's not true in all cases, generally speaking. So I want to this is a very broad topic, but I want to really focus in on the separation between showing empathy, right, on one side, but then separating that from actually absorbing all of the emotional sort of activities that go on. And so what does it look like to you to show empathy, but not getting in to the emotionally absorbing everything of an employee bring to you? That's a tough question, but I thought maybe you might be able to answer it.
So I love how you phrase that. Empathy is not absorption, and it can't be, right? If we're absorbing everyone else's challenging situations, we're never going to make it out of a workday, right? It's really important that we still hold capacity for ourselves to show up for the rest of the organization. So love how you frame that. To me, empathy is about creating space, listening, understanding, making sure that you're present in a conversation, but not taking on someone else's emotional weight. Your job is to be steady human in somebody else's storm, but don't get caught up in that storm. So again, to echo your point, yes, you cannot absorb everybody else's sort of trauma or challenging situations that they're bringing to work. I think some of the other key ways to avoid absorbing all that is thinking about containment, right? So thinking about what boundaries need to look like for you personally. That's probably going to be different for every person, every situation, every organization, but understanding that you're not a bad person for saying you have boundaries, you care deeply, and you're still staying grounded, right? That's the best way to show up and service your organization, is to put up those boundaries. And from my view, I think it's actually strategic. Preserving your energy, preserving your ability to continue to show up for everyone else in your organization is a strategic choice. And you can only do that by ensuring, you're not absorbing all the feelings that happen that day, and that you're still creating space for all the other conversations that are going to take place.
That was really hard to do. I mean, it's not a clear line, like where it sort of stops and ends. And so I guess my next question is around how can HR practitioners start building better emotional boundaries without feeling like they're actually abandoning employees? Because that's something, that I struggled with many years ago. Throughout my career, I always wanted to do my best job, and I knew I could give more, but I knew that I might have been treading into waters that I didn't really want to go into. But then that feeling guilty part sort of came into the picture sometimes. I know that wasn't healthy and accurate, but so how do you do that? How do you build that boundary so that you're not feeling, oh my God, I'm actually abandoning someone or so-and-so?
Absolutely. And I would echo your sentiment, Jeff. This is something that I've had to learn, and I was not good at this in my early career. Not to take us down a rabbit hole, but my first year of professional work, about 20 years ago, I'm aging myself here, I actually started off in the...
I'm older than you, so don't worry. All good.
Fair enough. So we're in good company here. But I started off outside of HR, and I actually started off in the not-for-profit sector, and I had no boundaries, and I was so burnt out emotionally. 1 year, I don't even think I made it to the full year, that I left that field of practice entirely and went into something else. I didn't understand what it meant to hold space, but not hold the weight of everything. And so that was something I really had to process and think about how I could continue to show up. I'm somebody who's what they would say deep empath. And so that's hard for me. This has been a big learning. One of the best learnings I have came from somebody whom I admire so much. Her name is Jackie Lauer. I think you know Jackie.
I know Jackie. Yeah, of course.
Jackie's incredible. So Jackie Lauer is an amazing facilitator and coach. We have had the pleasure of working with Jackie at Dejero for the entire almost 10 years I've been there, but longer since I've been there. And we had a conversation back in 2017, 2018, and I was just saying to her, it's getting heavy, right? I don't know how to balance all this because there's a lot happening, and my heart was breaking for a number of reasons for a number of people. And she said, girl, you got to get really good at this. And if you know Jackie, that's the kind of language she uses. She's just so great at connecting with people on a real level. And she said to me, the best practice is to invite people into your office. They're going to come in with their suitcase. They're going to open their suitcase and all their stuff is going to spill out. And you're going to kind of look through it with them, and they're going to walk you through and tell you about each piece and tell you, you're going to walk through them, systems, how to fold, how to get it back organized. And then you're going to tell them, okay, you got to pack your suitcase back up and you got to take it back out of my office. And that was one of the most brilliant ways to just kind of map it out for me. And she had said, if you're not sending that suitcase back out the door, you're going to wind up with an office full of suitcases that you have to carry around at the end of the day. And that really just set me off on my own coaching training and coaching journey. And that's really helped me set some boundaries, just understanding where you play. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to carry it. So again, that's going to look and feel very different. For me, again, I had Jackie Lauer's wonderful words of inspiration kind of set that light bulb moment off for me, but that's been a big journey for me. Practically speaking, not everybody has a Jackie Lauer in their ear every day. So how do we do that, right? As practitioners, I think, like we mentioned in the prior question, you just have to get really comfortable with recognizing that boundaries are not walls. It's not a bad word. It's actually clarity. And it means that we can show up consistently and in a sustainable way for everybody at our organization. Get okay with having boundaries. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you're actually trying to preserve yourself and your company's energy too.
I think that this is the perfect moment to say this, is that building experience matters in this context. I know that a lot of people say, if you've been around for 20, 25, 30 years, you're old school and so on. And that might be true in sort of some cases. In this case, having that experience and actually working through some of these things is the only way that you can really get good at this. So Jackie Lauer, I think there's going to be some tags and posts on your behalf. So you're very welcome for the promotion and marketing on behalf of Christine here. All right. So next question for you. So this really talks about the leaders and company culture.
Mm-hmm.
So what role do both have or play in either reinforcing or reducing this emotional burden on HR?
So I think there's a couple things, right? So one, I think the tone needs to be set across an organization that leaders are expected to help model and manage model the emotional maturity, if you will, to walk into those tough conversations. And then the other piece of that is organizations need to be prepared to support and develop their leaders to walk into those conversations confidently. It can't just be a situation where every conversation is farmed out to HR. That doesn't work. So it really has to be that shared accountability model in the sense that leaders are committed to showing up and participating in those tough conversations. And likewise, organizations need to make sure that they are invested in developing and coaching their leaders and also having systems and benefits and supports in place to help take care of their people who are going through tough and difficult situations, and also their leaders who are embarking upon those challenging situations. I think those are probably, what I would say kind of biggest tips for success, if you will, in terms of how do organizations actually pull this off without HR being kind of, like we said, that place where just all heaviness and all emotionally charged conversations lands, because it's not realistic, right? And then, like I said, making sure that you've got kind of that culture of care. So do you have the right benefits in place? Do you have processes and systems in place to care for employees who are going through challenging experiences? Have you developed enough psychological safety in your organization that folks feel they can go and have that conversation with their leader or another member of the leadership team? So those are really important factors to think about it. And again, if we look back at the pandemic, my hope is that, there's always a silver lining. My hope is that knowing the amount of vulnerability that was showing up at work and the challenging situations folks were going through, that some of that psychological safety has been imprinted on organizations and stayed as we've moved beyond there, because we know some of the other pieces have still lingered. So I hope that one of the positives has lingered as well.
I totally agree with that. I think that really working with the leaders on an ongoing basis on their skills is probably the number one thing. And I find since the pandemic started, I did a lot of work with teams and leaders, HR leaders to really build their skills. And they all ask for training. I can't tell you how many times I said, sure, that's a great starting point, but you need to have ongoing coaching, one-on-one group. All these different things have to be there, because that is how you build your organization, going forward. So honestly, that is the only way, because while your HR leader might be awesome and they walk on water, yes, they all walk on water, just giving prop to my HR peers, they're only like a small team, right? They're a small group of people, and you can't shoulder the burden all on them. This is a question that I ask everybody.
Mhm.
If there's one thing that our viewers can learn from anything that we've talked about today, so what is that one thing?
Can I cheat and say 2?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Just want to make sure I'm not breaking any rules here. I don't know. It's the first time on the podcast ever. Okay. So the first one is that get comfy with boundaries, right? They're not a bad or a selfish thing. They're actually strategic. If we don't care for ourselves, we cannot and will not properly care for our organization. So it's okay. Boundaries are a good thing. It means you're more emotionally developed. You have a better sense of your own limitations, your own professional limitations, where your training stops, where the real world hits, where we need to refer out. These are all good things. And the second thing I would say is get yourself a really amazing network of peers. We all need an awesome peer group, somewhere you can go to debrief on your conversations, especially for folks who are living that same reality. Those would be my 2 biggest pieces that I hope folks would walk away with.
Those are fantastic. Christine, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. This is the Unmuted Podcast. And so please do comment on our episode, obviously, because this is one way that we sort of share value and, create learning opportunities. So once again, I'm Jeff, the host of the Unmuted Podcast. And if you haven't already, you can also hit the bell button on YouTube. If you want to be notified when there's new episodes coming out, just hit that button. So thank you very much, Christine, for being here. And we'll talk soon.
Thanks for having me.